question. Cool. Seems like we're on. Okay, welcome everyone to the November 2024 Power BI and Data Analytics for Enviro's meetup group. So those people that have just joined, like this is your first time joining us, welcome. Our mission, or like what we're trying to create here over the past few years with this meetup, is really just give people an opportunity to share different case studies, largely in the BI space, but as you've seen from this topic, also moving forward into AI tools and just general sort of data analytics based tools that we can use. So it allows people to learn new tips and tricks, hear these real world case studies and different people's experiences working largely in the environmental and the water space. So this one's a little bit different with the topic, but hopefully it's still similar applications. And really empower all Enviros on their Power BI journey. If you work in the environmental space where we're pretty sort of niche field, a lot of the especially Power BI training material and things we learn off of finance, sales, customer survey data, these things. So the sort of environmental space when you're looking at greenhouse gas emissions, how water flows, contamination, these things, it can be quite niche and unique. So being able to have applications and learn from other people of how we can use BI, AI tools in this space, I think is really valuable. And a lot of people can gain, really good ideas about how you can use these tools in this area as well. So welcome. Go across. So just general housekeeping, again, for people that don't dial in each month with us, just mute yourself as a courtesy to today's guest speaker, Mark. When you're not speaking, you can type any questions in the chat. I'll moderate it as we go, but there'll also be a few opportunities for like Q&A as we work our way through. This session is being recorded. I just confirmed it's being recorded. I'll share it on the YouTube channel and the meetup group later. And just you can zoom into content by holding control and scrolling on your mouse if you need to. I'm dialing in from Perth in Western Australia. So I'd just like to acknowledge the Bibbulmun people as the traditional owners of the land from where I'm dialing in from today. Pay my respects to the Whadjuk people as well, their elders, both past and present, and also acknowledge both traditional owners and also Indigenous populations from wherever you may be dialing in to today. This is just a view on one of my local runs, actually. The Swan River, also known as the Derbyl Yerrigan. Quite local to where we live. So it's a pretty nice part of the world. Work for Discovery Eye. So Discovery Eye, we put on this meetup and have been doing for a few years. So these are just the sort of areas that we work in, again, largely environmental and water-based data sets. So if you work in that space, need a bit of especially Power BI support, please reach out. We'll see if we can help you or at least point you in the direction of other people that might be able to. And on to the main event of today. Welcome, Mark, and thanks very much for putting your hand up to present. I know you've been dialing in and you're always very engaging with questions and conversations, which is excellent on these sessions. So looking forward to having you present, and then we can do the same to you, right? Like with the questions and the engagement. So that's great to have you along, mate. Thank you. So today's session is all about using GenAI and Power BI with some data sets that Mark's got, fossil hunting in Kansas. So I'll go through the intro as well and introduce yourself, Mark. So we'll discuss various AI tools, focusing on ChatGPT, Perplexity AI, and Copilot, and show their applications for both data analysis and research. So Mark will demonstrate how to gather data for fossil hunting in Kansas using a range of these tools, organize it into Excel, and then bring that into Power BI from a visualization perspective. So the focus, by the sounds of it, is going to be on the importance of experimentation with AI tools. So Mark, I'm sure, will share pros, cons, things he discovered along the way, showcase some practical steps for data manipulation and visualization that we can all then take away to use for our own data sets to see how it can be applied. In terms of who Mark is an environmental engineer and also data analyst who enjoys cultivating relationships with people, based out of Topeka in Kansas in the States, and he likes connecting people to data stories that make a difference in their business decision, which invigorates him. So I really like this one at the end, Mark. Data plus visualization equals insight for better decisions, which I think, especially when we're working in the BI space, that's really what we're trying to strive for. Make people's jobs easier and decision making a lot more clearer than what it can be sometimes. So I really like that little bite at the end that you've given, which is cool. That's it, mate. Without further ado, I'm happy to handball it across to you to take it away from here. So I'll stop sharing and it's all yours.
All right. Well, thank you, Christian. Um, so I'll go ahead and just share a little bit about where we're going today. Um, so many people think about prairies and a beautiful area when they think of the Midwest in the United States. Wanted to recognize the Kansa people, um, the people of the South Wind for the region that I live in, and they're in Kansas and Oklahoma. Um, and then also, can anybody guess what these dots on the map are in the top right?
Known fossil sites.
Nope, they're feedlots. We love beef. And so um like the red dots are a whole bunch of feedlots, and then the geologic map of Kansas is here, and a whole bunch of fossils are all across the entire map because all of Kansas was under the water before. And when a lot of people hear about Kansas, this is kind of what they think of. They think of the Wizard of Oz. Um, and they also think of a band, Kansas, that did Dust in the Wind. Um, but to get on to our discussion topic today, um, we'll talk about how we can really explore a data set. So first off, when you're thinking through your prompts, you need to think through which Gen AI tool can you use at work. For my work, we can only use Copilot because Copilot has an enterprise that connects with Microsoft, and we know that it's secure. Um, Other people, they've vetted different AI programs like ChatGPT. One of the advantages of ChatGPT is it can write Python code for you. And you can even visualize things just by saying, here's what I want done in data analyst. Um, and then another one, Claude, if you have a lot of legal jargon, you can bring things together and you can load all your documents and create an AI agent that's an expert in a field. And so like for environmental law, you could pull all of your documents for your province, your region, and then think through which regulations would apply to what situation, water, air, soil. And so let's just experiment a little bit. What are some bad prompts that we could do? We could say, tell me about fossils. And then what we're gonna get is just random stuff because we what you put in is kind of what you get out. And it might be cool, but it won't really help you generate a data set that you can use. Um, but if we try to make it better and we say fossil locations um, in the United States, then we'll get something, but it might not be specific to what we're looking for. One advantage of using Perplexity AI and Copilot is that you have citations and you can always click on these to learn more. And I like having those citations because then you can check whether your AI tool is hallucinating or not. Today I was working on air permitting and I found out that AI had hallucinated some air hazardous air pollutant values. And so if I hadn't caught that, it would have been really bad. Um, but for the fossils, if we try to generate a data set, we need something that we can tie to specific locations. And so this doesn't really do it for us. It's kind of close, but not quite. And so then we can type in something like top five fossil hunting locations in Kansas with addresses and GPS coordinates. If you get specific, sometimes you get better results. Not always. Sometimes the results still suck. But here we go. This is something that we could put into Power BI and that has some really good information for us. We could actually know where to go by looking at the county map. We could know, okay, let's Google Monument Rocks. And then we could also know like, okay, Flint Hills. So that's in Northeast Kansas at the Tallgrass Prairie National Preserve. Um, and then thinking through um, what what parts of Kansas do we want to go to? After this, we can pull this data into Excel. If anyone's really good at Python, you can do web scraping, which is really cool. Um, I'm not, so all I did was I copied and pasted from ChatGPT and Perplexity AI and Copilot. And so I tried out a few different Gen AI tools. Um, and I'm using Copilot because this is what's approved. Never go against your security at your work. You don't want to get fired because you wanted to be creative. But when you click copy here, you can put it into a Word doc. And when you put it into the Word doc, like it'll probably be formatted in a way that doesn't make sense. And Um, Part of it is just thinking through how can I clean up everything as quickly as possible? And how do I document what I'm doing? Um, so just skipping some steps will Martha Stewart it. Um, so if you take your GPS coordinates and you take your locations, you put them into a table, and you can use Control T to speed up that process. Um, and then once you have your table, you can go ahead and build your Power BI dashboard. This is just very simple, just for illustration purposes. But what you could do to figure out where you want to go is you could put in your lat longs, and Esri has a good map that you can use within Power BI, that ArcGIS for Power BI map. And then you can think through which places would make sense to go to from your location. For me, the closest location would be in the Konza Prairie. And it might not be the best though. And so even though you've got the top 5 locations, um, based on firsthand knowledge, I know that near the Monument Rocks out in western Kansas is where the most fossil density is. And so it's always good when we're using ChatGPT to know that humans might give us a little bit more insight. So maybe you combine this information. Once you make your dashboard, you talk to a geologist or two, and you just ask them, hey, where's the best fossil hunting place that you've gone? And you figure out how your data can actually get you where you want to go. That how your data can tell a better story to help you make a better decision on where you would hunt for the best fossils. Maybe you're hunting for trilobites, and it's easier just to go to somewhere in central Kansas. And so each of these are very simple to create. I'm sure that everyone knows how to. You just click and voila, it's there. Um, but talking further about generative AI, so I wanted to share several resources that you can use to think through which AI tool to use. One, there's a lot of people on YouTube who, when you just type in one AI tool versus another, like Perplexity AI versus ChatGPT, they have an entire dialogue about what's better for what situation. And they're better for different things, right? And so your application, maybe Claude is the best if you're wanting to take all your business marketing documents and combine them together and then have your branding and figure out how you could give a freemium resource to someone that you can add value to their day. Um, Claude would be better for that use case. But then let's say that you've got a lot of data analytics that you need to do. ChatGPT might be your best um, source as long as you don't care about some hallucinating and you can work that out. Let me just show you how it can hallucinate. So if I type in something uh, that I know really well, humans are still really important in this process. So like if I type in hazardous air pollutants um, for Missouri, what are the de minimis uh, amounts? And then it'll list off a whole bunch of numbers, and they might not all be right. And so then I would need to check my sources. And when they cite a source, click on it, look at what it says, make sure that you get the tables in the statutes and you look through the tables for yourself, because sometimes it's extracting data and it won't get it perfectly right. And so for this example, um, it only got part, it only focused on some gasoline constituents mainly. And so if you wanted to actually get more information, you'd need to read the actual document. And so that's a way that sometimes when you're using AI, you only get part of the information that you actually need. Now, another thing might be that uh, you're looking for landfills. Um, Recently, I tried looking for landfills, and I found that if I typed give me a list of landfills, it could only give me 30 at a time for Copilot. Um, and so there's a limit to the amount of information that generative AI can pull. But I wanted this to be a discussion time. And so um, if you prefer to use ChatGPT, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat. If you prefer to use Perplexity AI, go ahead and put a 2 in the chat. If you prefer to use Claude, put a 3 in the chat. If you prefer Copilot, put a 4 in the chat. And then in order for us to kind of have a guided discussion, I'll just pull up a visual by Visual Capitalist. And that visual shows pretty much all of the AI that are currently ranked. So what do you like to use and why? Let's talk about that.
I think for me, it's always sort of been ChatGPT. I would say the easiest, but now with seeing Copilot being brought more and more into, a lot of the Microsoft-based tools that I'm using, and in Edge as the browser and these sorts of things, I think it's making it a lot more easier. So I might, did you say um, Copilot was number 4 in the chat? Is that what you were saying? Maybe I'll have to change my number.
Well, yeah, Copilot's number 4. These are just the ones I use the most: ChatGPT, Perplexity AI, Claude, and Copilot. But there's so many different ones that you could use.
And
I
sorry,
pay
Mark, do you have, I was going to ask, do you have licenses or paid subscriptions to any of these?
I pay for Perplexity AI because it's best for research, in my opinion.
Yep.
And that's what most of my work is involving. But I guess it really depends on your use cases, what you find most valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's some good comments in the chat. So Pat said it depends largely on organization preference or restriction. I think it's a really important point you made before, Mark, about don't go against your organization's IT security settings and these sorts of things. So you kind of go with the directional path that's been given. And I guess that was previous with BI. If the organization is set up as like a Power BI house, so to speak, and you're off doing like random Tableau dashboards and stuff, maybe that wouldn't look favorably so from a governance perspective of how that's controlled, administered. So maybe it's similar. And Simran's just said Gemini AI. Much experience with that one?
Yeah, Simran, could you share about that? I haven't had the chance
Yeah,
to
I have.
jump in.
Yeah,
So
I have used Gemini AI. It's just like a chat GPT, but more advanced than that. In Claude, like we have a limited, as we talked about it, yeah. But in chat GPT, what I found is like it's a limited data that is there because it's an AI tool that it has to be, updated itself. But I don't find that chat GPT is more, you know, it's my personal experience what I felt like that it needs to be updated. Like in Claude you get new ideas, and many things like that. And in especially in Copilot also, because for my work also I use Copilot and Claude AI, and nowadays I started using Gemini. Yeah, so these are the things that I use basically.
what do you use them for, Simran?
For I'm a teacher, I'm a STEM educator, so for my content, sometimes I use it, sometimes for the coding, like because I teach robotics also. So sometimes if I stuck in a code, or if my mind doesn't run, so I just open that, these platforms, and these platforms are helping me a lot. So yeah.
For sure. I had a coworker in HR that had a problem with an Excel formula. And he said,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this outside consultant did it, and I don't know how to do it. And I just put it into generative AI and said, tell me how the formula works, like I'm a
Mm-hmm.
5-year-old. And it worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even for the coding, there are many, AI tools like blackbox.ai. These helping you a lot in the coding, but sometimes not always, because you have to run. Obviously, these are the AI brains, and we have to run all our brains to work accordingly. So yeah, and one of as for a teaching tools also, like there are many AI softwares and the platforms that I use. One is the Magic Box AI. It's helping me a lot. Like if you can just explore with that, I would like you to do just explore with it and just see Magic Spock AI. In that you will be finding n number of things. It's one platform, but it's more like you will able to see over there. It will generate an email for you, images. Like in one platform you will be getting everything. So that's one handy tool that I use a lot. So yeah.
Siva, I see that you mentioned you can't access ChatGPT, but you use Copilot. Um, like, why do you like ChatGPT, and what's it like to use Copilot at work?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, due to the company, the security issues, I can't access ChatGPT. Yeah, what I've seen, like in the previous project, I was working as a kind of advisory data engineering guy. So it was like mainly to analyze and analyze what is the existing data platform architecture, and then understand the pain points which the current users are facing, and then from there I need to derive the proposed solution, what could be the better for them. So when I was using, like during this role, I was using Copilot because that's the default one in the company laptop. I was trying to ask a lot of questions like, okay, right now I'm going to have a security stakeholder meeting. So what should I ask him, in order to understand how the security is implemented in the current organization? And then Copilot was just generating same kind of questions in security area, like offer all the different perspectives. But when I try to do the same thing on ChatGPT is much more better at generating the questions to ask during the meetings, all the stuff. So it was interesting to see how the same when I'm looking for the same information in the Copilot and as well as ChatGPT, that's where I felt like ChatGPT gives more information and more kind of practical questions, I would say. But for Copilot, I think I need to say specifically, okay, I need this, consider this. Then only I think Copilot was able to, generate those kind of questions. So
That's a really good point, because sometimes, like with different forms of generative AI, you have to be more specific, and then with others you can be more general, and it can actually generate some ideas for you. So yeah.
And also I used Gemini as well because somehow I got access to Gemini as well. So Gemini was good at writing, like when I have some questions regarding SQL queries or store procs which I want to create, then I used to generate on like I need to write the basic structure, and then I ask Gemini to add more functionalities to that. So it was quite, saying like, okay, there is some issue with this statement or somewhere here. So I think that then I need to change this. So I think this should work. So it usually do something good in Gemini. It's all depends, I guess, what I'm writing, whether I'm specific or not. If I'm just writing like generic statement, it doesn't work, I guess. So it should be like more specific. You need to provide more context, and you need to specify the situation also, and you need to say like, okay, think as a data engineer, or think as a business analyst, or think as a stakeholder or user. You need to say that. Otherwise, those stuff doesn't return good stuff. Sorry, I was talking too much.
No, that's very good.
I was going to jump in as well and say, I think that's so much of what you said there, Siva, is so valuable. It's like how you phrase your questions and keep digging deeper is just so important. I think there's a whole educational sphere moving towards this direction in terms of, learning how best to efficiently use these AI-based tools. So I think it's really, really, there's a good conversation point that you raised. So thanks. That's great.
Yeah, and one more thing I would like to say, interesting thing, like as I'm a technical guy, I can't express my English as a business person. So it's always like in technical terms, I'd say, okay, this. But when it comes to a business person, it's a different way of putting the same thought in a different words. So that's where I was like, learning like, okay, I think this is good English. I think I should use this. So, but still I couldn't do that because I'm still technical guy, But somewhere like writing in the presentations or framing a word in the presentation, when it is like when I was about to prepare a presentation for CIO of the company, and then I was using this ChatGPT, all the stuff. Okay, I think this is the right way of telling, because it should be a somewhat crisper and a nice way, so that the higher management people understand what I'm trying to say, not in a technical perspective, because they don't understand technical stuff. So it should be like kind of business high level perspective, I would say.
Yeah, because like as you're thinking through how to use Gen AI, one way might be using the Grammarly AI tool, And like you can write your emails a certain way to a certain audience. Like if you're writing to a friend, it'd be different than writing to the CEO. And Grammarly can also help with your PowerPoint presentation and even with different emails that you send online. So, Christian, any other discussion points that you wanted to hit on?
I think you've raised some really good conversation amongst people. I was interested in with the graphic you put up with that link, and thanks for sharing all those links. That's obviously most popular Gen AI tools as of August 2024. I was interested to get your perspective on how do you think this might change in a year or so? Like, what have you seen as are the AI tools that are probably growing more rapidly? Like, do you still think ChatGPT would be there in a year's time as like the big sphere, or do you think others can catch it?
Ooh.
Hard question, I know.
Yeah. I think so because I have a sustainability mindset, I
Yep.
think that whoever can do things the most sustainable long term will win. And so currently, whenever we use ChatGPT or another tool, NVIDIA, there's a lot of heat transfer involved in for the servers because there's just so much more information that's pulling together. And so I don't know who's going to win, but it's kind of an open race right now. But ChatGPT definitely has the monopoly right now. But I think that anybody in the next 3 or 4 years could come out ahead. I know Microsoft and Apple used to be like an underdog, but then they kind of jumped forward.
Yeah, exactly right. It's a good point. Does anyone else have any other questions? Like, were you going to continue talking to another component, Mark, or this was it in terms of raising, the largely presentation side of things?
Yeah, just raising questions, really. Just wanted to spark discussion.
Yeah, no, perfect. Have you found it helpful for learning Power BI, some of the AI tools? Like, do you use that quite regularly?
So I guess one thing that scared the crap out of me one time was I typed in like create a dashboard for me, and the design was very, very good. And I thought, oh, if my boss knows that AI can do everything, like what am I here for? And uh, I really had to struggle with that question because AI can do some really amazing things artistically. And so, but that thinking component, that thinking like an analyst, um, one resource that I go to is Maven Analytics for learning Power BI. And I'll go ahead and just put that in the chat. Um, they have quite a few free courses, and then they have some paid courses as well. But what I like about it is they have different speakers that they invite to speak on different data skill sets, whether it's Python, SQL, Power BI, Excel. So for creating Power BI dashboards, there's actually within Power BI, you can click in the online version, like create a dashboard, and it will create a dashboard for you. And then there's also templates online. There's like the Power BI gallery if you're looking for ideas there. My favorite resource would be Dashboard in a Day. And because if you're starting from a beginner framework, Dashboard in a Day can really help you learn the basics of how to create a dashboard, and then you can jump on to some of Alice Drummond's YouTube videos and learn more.
Yeah, no, they're all a lot of great resources that you mentioned, and I think you're right. Like how you mentioned, it can be a bit scary. Maybe it's like AI is going to take over my job as a data analyst, but I think there is always still that domain knowledge required in the way that you apply that thinking from a data perspective, that's always still going to be relevant, at least in the short term, I think. But I think it's a lot of people do get a little bit scared of that in terms of like, what's it going to look like in a year, what's it going to look like in 3 years. And I think it's important to, exactly as you've done and are doing, embrace the tech, use it for, improving yourself, your learning, and also your skills, and just know that you can keep being a great worker and have fun at the same time by using those tools like really effectively. So I think it's some great points you've raised. Looks like we've got just a few comments in the chat. So I think Siva, thanks. You asked, what are the tools for creating Power BI dashboards? I think that might have been in reference to what you mentioned, Mark. You said you went through the online service, was it? And then, sorry, if you want to just maybe repeat that again.
Yeah. So there's a number of different ways that you can do it. Like if you're designing a dashboard, like you can basically use ChatGPT and say, design a dashboard. Now, some of the tools can't do graphics. They can't do images. Like Perplexity AI cannot do image creation, but ChatGPT can. And so for ChatGPT, you just type in like, hey, make a dashboard for me. And that dashboard design is kind of what I was referring to. Now, for Power BI, within Power BI, let me just share my screen again. So and I probably shouldn't get on proprietary stuff with my company, but let me put a YouTube video in the chat that could demonstrate that.
That's good. And as you're doing that as well, I think it's also, remember, for everyone, like Power BI being updated monthly is both Power BI desktop app, but also the Power BI online service. So a lot of these AI features and things that we're seeing being, brought in are continuing to grow, where, it's important to keep on top of it. Usually Microsoft release the new update at the start of each month, excluding January next year. So don't expect one then, but usually at the start of each month. And then you can go and look at the blog, look at the video, see what new features there are, both in the desktop app, but also in the online service. And then, if it's something that's relevant, for your type of work, say it's a new visual, whether it's custom visual or something's been some enhancement to one of the core visuals. Like I know the Azure Map core visual is getting lots and lots of new features brought into it over the last few months and moving forward. So these are the sort of things that you can it's important to keep on top of if you're using Power BI quite regularly. So the video you're sharing is letting AI do all the work. Is that right, Mark?
Yep. So Layla, Gariani, and Chandu, there's some Excel MVPs, and they show a lot of what Copilot can do within Excel and within Power BI. And so you should just look at what they have to say on it because they're the experts. Chandu, and then also Layla Garani out of Austria.
Awesome. No, they're great. A lot of their stuff. And there was another comment I was also pretty interested to see. Did you have any experience using Copilot within Power BI Desktop and how effective that is?
So I guess I'm allowed to try it now because it's in there.
Only if you're comfortable. Like you don't need to. You can just talk to it. If you.
I think that so yeah, I haven't explored that, but now that it's already embedded in Power BI and it's a button I can click, I need to explore it. And so thanks for pointing that out to me that I can use it. And so I guess we can connect to our internal safety reports and whatnot. For for my company, we have a safety moment, and then we also have safety metrics that tie to, are we wearing gloves when we're going out into the field? Are we doing things the proper way? And so, but yeah, I need to explore it. Has anybody else explored it already?
I think Daniel asked the question. Daniel, if you wanted to come off mute, if you've had any like exploration of it, feel free to add. Yeah, I haven't explored it. Pat's saying only if your tenant admin has activated Copilot and backed the workspace with Fabric capacity. Is that right, Pat, to be able to use it? You're still on mute, Pat, if you are talking. Sorry. Yeah. Yep. Daniel, audio not working. No worries at all, and haven't used it. Yeah, I guess it's something for people to explore if you've got like the workspace setup and the ability. Sounds like there are a few requirements though, like because I guess you said, Mark, your organization has the Copilot extension license or the ability to use it. So I think from my experience, because we haven't paid any extra, what do I get? I still get it popping up. Yeah, no, so I get a big, you can't, if I try and access Copilot through my Power BI desktop, it says you can't access Copilot because none of the current workspaces are compatible with Copilot. So yeah, there's just a few things, I guess, to note in terms of how accessible it is based on your organizations. Anyone else have any other questions? I've still got a few, Mark, but give anyone else the opportunity.
I want to share something, the experience with Power BI. Okay, personally, for me, creating a dashboard is not challenging for me, but once you create the dashboard, you have to, explain to the users, and they have to accept that because each user have their own kind of, visuals or priorities, or the way of understanding is different. So that's why it's sometimes it's very challenging for the people. Like if there is a big team of like business, like 15, 20 people, then people will come up with say, okay, I don't need this graph. Oh, can you change it? And then other one say, it's okay. That looks good for me. So it's very difficult to convince them and try to tell them, okay, this is how it should be. That's a difficult part which I felt, during the Power BI experience. And sometimes when you go and say, okay, if you want to see the dashboard, could you please tell me how it should be? Like, can you tell me what are the graphs? What should be on the x-axis or y-axis, or what do you want? Is it a bar graph or line graph? What do you want to see? And then some people, like the users, they say, okay, I don't have any experience of that. Some people say that. So then it's our job. We need to come up with, a good visuals, a dashboard, explain them, okay, this is how it can be. And then if they are satisfied, then they're happy to accept it. But it's becoming challenge, like when there's a lot of people and you need to take all the inputs from everyone and then put it into the dashboard. It's kind of very challenging, I would say. That's what I have seen. Even like Christian, I still remember, like I saw one of the dashboard like that you guys developed like 3 or 4 years back. It's water dashboard.
Yeah,
It's regarding water. I have seen that. Like I was in India, I think in 2019 or 2020, I guess. I was looking at your dashboard. I thought, oh, looks awesome. But to be frank, I was thinking then it's really difficult to develop this kind of dashboard. But I hope, like I was thinking, okay, the users might be happy with this format and that they should definitely accept that. So that's why I was feeling. So yeah, it's all like depends because I'm a consultant, it's all different for each project, each people. Yeah, they have their own way of working, own way of presentations. It's all like very challenges. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
All valid points. Yeah, it's definitely the audience and the stakeholders and the people that you've got to satisfy. Yeah.
If we need to satisfy at the end, it doesn't matter how the dashboard looks. The numbers, the numbers are very important. If the numbers are wrong, they say, okay, then this is completely wrong. This is stupid. They say that directly.
Yeah. And how have you found that, Mark, in your sort of like Power BI space or just data space in general? Because I know in the US, obviously, I'm guessing the area you work in, whether you're working, for regulators like US EPA or local councils and people, is there a lot of like intense requirements and input from different parties about the information that you need to provide in certain ways?
It depends on if you're doing everything within your company.
Yeah.
So if you're working for business development, it's great because you have the subject matter expert that has that knowledge base that could say, this is what we want to do, let's do it. And then as a data analyst, you can just go. But yeah, when you have outside influences, you do have to listen. You have to listen to the voice of the customer and then really think through, okay, if I was in their shoes, what would I care about the most? And can I give them 3 different prototypes for them to see and then say, no, not that? And how do I get them to be honest with me? It's very difficult to get people to be honest because at least in America, people try to be very polite.
The same with Australia. I think it's to get from A to B, you kind of go like this path, right? So okay, here we go.
Yeah.
They try not to hurt your feelings, which is fair enough. It's nice, but yeah. No, it's a good point. We are similar at the outset, like several different prototypes, several different like layouts in terms of functionality or like that page turning experience and different bookmarks buttons based on views and how they might want to see their data if they want to interchange between like time series charts versus tables and these things. We also find a lot of the clients that we work for, and I think we've moved into just general conversation now if everyone's happy with that. A lot of clients don't really know Power BI when we start these projects. And so what they see at the start or what they think they can get from the tool does change as we're going through because they're learning more about what they can do and, what it can do. And you definitely get light bulb moments from those people that are coming in at a pretty novice level. So yeah, for everyone that is on the call that works in Power BI space, if you find similar things, please add to the conversation. But yeah, Mark, you find the same sort of thing, it sounds like.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, so I put a link in the chat there. I was trained many years ago. Hi, Christian. I was trained many years ago by Stephen Few, and in fact, on my bookshelf behind, I've probably got most of his books there. But the question I always say is, data's only of value if you act on it. So the question I would ask the business makers is, what decisions do you need to make based on this report or dashboard? And what information do you need to support that decision making process? And that gives you, an idea of what they need to see. And then that's what I turn to the likes of Stephen's books, because he talks about the best way of presenting different data. So yeah, if for example, I looked at that AI link that you sent and it had the numbers showing the proportion of the different engines, but if you actually plotted that as a horizontal bar chart, you would just really see how far ChatGPT is ahead of all the competition. And Stephen, as an example, he hates pie charts with a passion because we as humans, we visualize length very easily. It's almost subconscious. We can tell differences in length. We can't do that with areas or angles. So pie charts are a really poor way of presenting data unless you've only got a couple of data points that you want to show. So there's things like that in there where just some basic rules of when to use a table, when to use a chart, and what type of chart to use can get you a long way without being an expert. And obviously the stuff you do, Christian and Alice, I mean, yours is very different because that is proper storytelling. And I mean, they're amazing, the dashboards that you build. But for a lot of business ones, they just want a collection of line charts and bar charts that just help them inform a decision.
Yeah, it's very valid points you're making. And I guess a lot of stuff that people see from us are the public dashboards, remember? And as soon as you go into like, okay, I want this on our website to be able to educate the community, you're talking different style than these internal dashboards, which are very more focused, like just give us the information quickly, rather than allowing people to have that page turning storytelling experience. But yeah, Stephen Few, and I think there's lots of other good books out there as well, Peter, that like really dive deep into the why behind using different types of visuals. So thanks very much. That's really good points. I see, Pranam, you've written just some comments. I don't know if we want to go through those, Mark.
Okay.
So 2 comments. It
helps if you take the stats to the end users like Power BI subscription to give them a preview of the insights that might be of interest to them. Oh, yeah. Great stuff, Pranam. Wow. This is amazing. Like, yeah, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, feel free to come off mute if you want, Pranam, and talk to us. Yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah. See, for years, I think the past 5 years, I've built dashboards. The user report would almost show 3 months, 0 people.
Sorry, Pranam, your microphone's a little bit stuttery. I don't know. Was that for other people as well? I just found it a little bit hard to hear. I don't know if you've got another microphone option.
Yeah, I can't hear as well properly.
Is this better?
A little better, yeah.
Yeah. So see, for years we have developed Power BI dashboards and tried to move away from Excel. But there are 2 issues, right? I provide a dashboard, and the first thing I get is, okay, how do I export this to Excel? Then why do we even build the dashboard? And second was, if you publish a dashboard to the Power BI service, within 3 months, I get a notification from Microsoft saying, hey, we are going to pull this out. We are going to stop the refreshes because nobody apparently is actually looking at these dashboards. And then they had to resort to usage reports and all of that, where people are more comfortable. They would just export it. They would just export the data, and then they do the analysis. And because, again, it's not to blame them. They have been it's been decades of Excel tables where they thought that was the final output, and then we are suddenly asking them to read these bar graphs and line graphs and all of that, where we are not educating them basically beforehand, right? We think it's like art. You think this is the best that best insights that it could give, but yeah, if they're not able to read them, what's the point? I mean, they would rather look at numbers, right? Even though I can quote a lot of research on all of these and say, hey, you can't digest that kind of numbers. You need bar graph for that relative comparison and all of that. But they're more comfortable with that. And these are people who have been working for more than a decade or 2 decades. I mean, getting them to change or even view something new, it more becomes like a marketing and sales rather than insight. So yeah, I come up with something every 3 months. Every new Power BI feature that comes in, I try to incorporate in the next version of the report in the hopes that yeah, maybe awesome. You know what? This is one thing that Excel can't do, especially the AI in Power BI. There are a lot of these visuals that are actually which compare and which give those additional insights and all that. That's what. So it's more of letting the users discover. Yeah. But yeah, you can't wait for them to discover. You have to do that on their behalf and show them. And also, again, initially the problem was we would dump the same dashboard for everyone, from executives to the staff. So each one had something, but it was not customized to them. So I look at so the end user. For me, I see everything there because I'm the developer. I'm biased, right? But the end user would look at and say, okay, I can only see one stat that might be relevant to me. So why do I have to look at this entire page of all of these beautiful stats, but I don't know what to do with all of them? So it's helped to, again, with Power BI, we have these apps and we have those audiences. Once audiences came in, I customized it so that, they would see the same report, but each would see a different page from that, basically, and say, okay, and everyone thinks that, okay, everyone is looking at the same stats, but no, it's more of customized to what they should be looking at, or say what their KPIs are, or what I think the insights are. And yeah, recently I've started with subscription because again, I see that interest going down. So I would like, and it also helps, right? It's like those newspaper headlines, right? So every time I can tweak the subscription with a different visual. sometimes these visuals are not part of even the actual report. It's like I put a scattered graph somewhere or something and say, hey, this is the stat. But for details, you need to look at the actual report. And it's like mix and
Pranam,
match.
could I share a story real quick? Just to end our conversation, you mentioned talking to the executives, having a different way of presenting the data than the complicated Power BI dashboard. And one of the things that I found with executives is if I make a little video like Alice did in her YouTube, if you go to the that Discovery blog that Christian posted in the chat, she made a way for us to create like a video in canva.com and then just download that MP4 and then have a tutorial basically on how to use your dashboard. Alice uses that in a lot of her dashboard design. And that's one thing I've found helpful with the executives. And then another thing with executives is sometimes they like Esri ArcGIS story maps. And I can take the dashboard and break it down slide by slide into a story and put it into a story map. And so maybe it's PowerPoint, maybe it's story maps, maybe it's something else that executives might be more comfortable with too.
Yeah, so that's the next thing I want to do, because we have this option of embedding Power BI within PowerPoint. So now I'm actually reaching out to executives and saying, hey, give me a PowerPoint so that I'll develop these Power BI to look like your PowerPoints, but they'll be a live PowerPoints basically. So you don't have to work every quarter for, say, I don't know, hours or days. It would be live at any point of time. So yeah, I'm trying to meet the customer where they are, rather than, saying,
yeah,
what,
ease of use. That's so good.
Yeah. Awesome. No, thanks for sharing, Pranam. And I could tell by the way you were talking as well, like some of the frustrations you've had in the past, but then I'm sure like some of the wins when you do get those users to sort of see like, where Power BI can be useful more so than, the Excel and the tools they've been using for decades. So great conversation, everyone. Look, I'll just because we're close to time, I'll just share at the end just to close out on this session. And yeah, great. I think, Mark, if you wanted to get a bit of a conversation amongst the group about AI, BI, just general like business users, domain knowledge, I think we touched a lot of different areas there. So big tick, mate. And thanks very much for presenting. That was fantastic to get your experiences in these different tools and really get the conversation going. And thanks everyone for like a really like engaging and robust like conversation back and forth. I think everyone had lots to say and lots of different messages in the chat, and I'll make sure all those resources and all those links that were shared in the chat, I'll make them available in the blog as well so people can get access to them. So that's great. There was a question about where to go and get the information or the recording. So I've just got the links there, as well as putting the blog link in the chat itself. And if there are other people on the call that are keen to share, Power BI examples, environmental data analytics examples in general, even, very, very basic all the way to highly complex, or something that you want to talk about, only has to be, 20 minutes, half an hour. Yeah, feel free to hit me up, because it'd be great to continue having people share stories, probably moving into 2025. I'm not sure if we'll get one for December at this stage, but yeah, into next year, we'll continue to have this forum available, because I think it's really important that we continue to have these conversations, and everyone can learn from them. So I appreciate everyone dialing in, and especially Mark for the great session, mate, and the great presentation, especially given the time zone and things. I learned a little bit more about fossil hunting in Kansas, so it's pretty cool. So thanks. And yeah, thanks everyone for the session today. So with that, I'll stop the recording. Stop recording. And I'm happy to stay on the line, maybe just for 5 minutes or so.